The Priest and the Altar Boy by Simon Rochford. The back room of the prefab unit, which is a makeshift church, is quite small. In fact, tiny. It doesn't smell very nice, and there are damp spots all over the ceiling and walls. On Saturdays and Sundays, it is used as the sacristy before and after Mass. Me and the two other altar boys are squashed inside, like sardines in a can. I'm just happy to be hanging out with my friends. In fact, I feel like I'm literally in heaven. I'm 10 years old, and this is my first Mass as an altar boy, after all my practicing in the local community house. My parents are chuffed to be telling people that I will be serving at Mass tonight. This has made me especially happy, as it is not often I feel they're proud of me. The priest is coming into the room now with a warm presence, after being talking with many members of the parish on his way in. "Now, boys, let's not be so giddy out there for the service," he requests, while standing there grinning through his big, bushy, dark grey beard. "Okay, Father," we all reply, one after another. I have only ever met him a few times in the clergy house while I was training. He seemed like a lovely priest. The Father begins to change into his robe. We are already dressed from beforehand and are waiting on him. Our uniforms are different than most other altar boys. These are like a monk's gown, deep brown, with a hood, and a skinny little white rope used as a belt. The priest is taking his time changing and seems content in doing so. He looks very peaceful as he is humming to himself. I can't seem to stop snuffling and sniffling, as my nose is running from the scent of the ceremonial incense. I snort back the mucus and snot, swallowing it, as I have no tissues. "Yuck," says one of the altar boys. "That's disgusting," follows the other. They both begin mocking me more, as I continue to do it out of necessity and not looking to entertain them. The priest turns around towards me. With his left hand, he pulls out a lovely white bright handkerchief from under his robe. "Take this and use it for your nose during the Mass, if you need it," he says. "Thank you, Father, thank you," I reply shyly. I think this is a great act of kindness. Not only that, but one of God's holy men has given me this. I feel so privileged. The other two altar boys begin making faces behind the priest's back, directing them at me in a joking manner. They are letting me know they think I am his favourite. Quickly they stop as the priest asks me, "Will you look through the curtain and see if there are many out there, please?" I slowly sneak a peek, being very careful and making sure no one can see me. The prefab is packed. My parents and granny are there, the neighbours, people from school, and the other altar boys who are off duty too. I tell the priest, "It's completely black out there, Father, and they all look happy as well, Father." He is nodding his head and saying, "Okay, boys, do you all remember what you have to do during Mass?" We all say, "Yes, Father," in a rhythm-like manner. He proclaims, "God bless you all." As we get into formation to head out the curtain, I say to everyone very quickly, "Sorry, I just have to blow me nose, just in case." I take out the white hanky that the priest has given me and blow my stuffy nose in it. As I do this, I get a great sense of relief that now I would not or should not have a runny nose out there in front of all those people. The priest stops dead in his tracks and looks at me like I have just called Holy God a blasphemous name, or told him I hated Jesus. It is such a horrifying glare in his eyes. I'm scared. Still glaring at me, he draws his right hand back over his shoulder in a calm motion. I'm looking at him thinking, what's Father doing? Then for a split second he pauses and then continues even further back with his hand. Suddenly, he shoots his hand down fast, slapping me across the mouth and the nose. "How dare you!" he bellows. I'm in shock. I cannot believe he just hit me. I start crying with my head looking down at the ground. He grabs me by the scruff of the uniform and drags me across the little space there is towards the back of the sacristy. Grinding his teeth, he bends over, pressing his face against mine, and demands, "Dry those tears, boy, before we go out there. You'll not make a fool of me." Then he slaps me across the back of the head and motions me to dry my eyes with the same snotty hanky. The other two altar boys are just staring at us with looks of shock and fear. The priest roughly moves them into formation and threatens, "You don't want to upset God like he just did, do you now?" They both reply, "No, Father." He tells me to stand behind the other two altar boys and in front of him. "Walk out there normally, and remember, your family are watching. I don't want to have to tell them you're not welcome back," he commands. We walk through the curtain and down the aisle towards the altar. Everyone is staring at us. I'm terrified as to not let anyone see my smoky, bloodshot eyes. It will be obvious I have been crying. I do not want to let my family down, and I especially do not want everyone else to hate me for upsetting the Father. As I sit down and the Mass begins, my thoughts are going in so many different directions that I feel dizzy. Mass seems to be going well. I am too afraid to make eye contact with anybody or to even look in the priest's direction. Instead, I spend a lot of the time staring at my hands while they are playing with the white rope on my gown. My job is to ring the bell when the priest breaks the holy bread, and again when he drinks the wine from the chalice. A while later, the altar boy beside me taps my leg and whispers, "Here, you're after forgetting to ring the bell. Quick, do it now." I look up at the priest, who is glaring down at me. He doesn't say anything, but his eyes have the same look from when I blew into his hanky. I pick the bell up, ringing it, even though it is too late. I hold on to it to make sure I ring it when he drinks from the chalice. When the ceremony is eventually finished, we get into position and walk back the same way in the same formation, running back in my mind to the sacristy, but we are walking very slowly. Passing by his flock, they are smiling admiringly at the priest, thanking him for a great service. Very politely, he replies, "Thank you, and you're welcome." Everybody really respects him and thinks he is a wonderful man. If only they knew how I had upset him, I would be in big trouble. After getting through the curtain and out of sight of the parishioners, the priest gives me a massive and painful kick in my arse. It is so hard that I stumble forward and fall headfirst into the various objects that are stored under the table where we leave our belongings. I am so afraid in case he will beat me again that I stay under the table, pretending that my head hurts. Father does not utter a word to me. Instead, he calmly proceeds with getting out of his robe. The other two altar boys do the same, but are looking between me and the priest with pity and fear in their eyes. A nun comes in, and everyone except me says, "Hello, sister." While looking at me with distaste, she insists on wanting to know why I have not acknowledged her. So the priest begins telling her about the handkerchief incident and recalls how I ruined Mass by forgetting to ring the bell. The nun demands I get out from under the table and face her. Now I have to stand there as she belittles me on how I should be embarrassed for my family and me. Sneering, she comments on how poor my family are and informs me they do not need to be shamed any further. She explains how I should go to Mass every weekend for the next month and put money into the collection basket for God's forgiveness. After completing her rant, the priest steps in as he is putting his jacket on and asks if she is ready to leave. Gathering up some false strength, I step in towards them and admit, "I'm sorry, Father. I'm sorry, sister. as I take the handkerchief out from under my uniform and offer it back. He looks at me with complete disgust and slaps me abruptly across the face with his right hand again. Wash that handkerchief before you give it back to me. The nun exhales a loud tut while also shaking her head in disgust at me. He stands staring down at me for a moment before they both leave through the curtain. I immediately begin to quietly cry, while the other two altar boys kindly touch my shoulders, consoling me. They tell me not to worry, that he often hits some of the other lads too, and how it is fine afterwards as he eventually talks to them again. They joke that the sister is just brown nosing. The three of us can hear the priest from beyond the curtain, chatting away and laughing with people who attended Mass in the prefab. I ask the other two older boys not to say anything to their parents because I do not want to get into any more trouble. I especially do not want my own man there hearing about it. I will only get a couple of more smacks for humiliating them. I will have to go to confession and pray for God to forgive me and to not send me to hell when I die.